If America Were a Village, a book about the people of the United States, by David J. Smith, illustrated by Shelley Armstrong in 2009. Welcome to America. Bursts of color light up the sky. It is July 4th, the day Americans celebrate Independence Day and the founding of their country. But who are the people who live in this vast and varied nation? Where did they come from? What are they like today? How do they compare with people in other countries of the world? There are more than 306 million people in the United States today. This huge number is hard to imagine and even harder to analyze. If America never stays still, it is always changing and growing. There is one birth about every 8 seconds and one death every 12 seconds. A new immigrant arrives every 27 seconds. In total, one new person is added to the U.S. population every 12 seconds, which means that one, or maybe even two, were added while you were reading this paragraph. To find out more about America and Americans, we are going to reduce the whole population of America to a village of 100 people, the imaginary village you see here. Each person in this village of 100 will represent more than 3 million Americans in the real world. Let's enter the village and meet the people. Who are we? Look closely at the faces of the villagers and you will see a rainbow of colors. Americans come from all races and from all parts of the world. Some are newcomers, but others have been here for many generations. In our village of 100, about 13 are foreign-born. 6 of these have become U.S. citizens, while 7 are not yet citizens. Of the 13, 7 were born in Latin America, 2 were born in Europe, 3 in Asia. The remaining person, remember that one person represents 3 million Americans, comes from Africa, Canada, and Oceania, an area that includes Australia, New Zealand, and the islands of the South, West, and Central Pacific. 75 are white, 12 are black, 1 is Native American, and 4 are Asian, including 1 from China and 1 from the Philippines. The remaining 8 consider themselves members of some other race or a mixture of races. What languages do we speak? 82 people in our village speak English as their first language. 10 speak Spanish. 1 speaks Chinese, 1 French, and 1 German. Many other languages are important in the United States, but are not widely enough spoken to represent one whole person in the village. From most widely spoken to least, these include Tagalog, Vietnamese, Italian, Korean, Russian, Polish, Arabic, Portuguese, Japanese, French Creole, African languages, Greek, Hindi, Persian, Urdu, Gujarati, Armenian, Hebrew, Khmer, Yiddish, Navajo, Hmong, Scandinavian languages, Laotian, Thai, and Hungarian, and many more. Where do we come from? America is a country of immigrants. Almost every person in the United States can trace ancestors back to other parts of the world. If the America of today were a village of 100, 15 would be of German ancestry, 11 would be of Irish ancestry, 9 African, 9 English, 7 Mexican, 6 Italian, 3 Polish, 3 French, 3 Native American, 2 Scottish, 2 Dutch, 2 Norwegian, 1 Scotch-Irish, and 1 Swedish. The rest have other backgrounds. That is quite a change from when the first U.S. Census was taken in 1790. If America had been a village of 100 in 1790, 53 would have come from England, 19 from Africa, most of them as slaves, 11 from Scotland and Ireland, and 7 from Germany. The rest had various backgrounds, including French, Swedish, and native. Early on, most immigrants came from Europe, but that began to change after 1900. In 1900, 96% came from Europe, 1% from Latin America, and 3% from other places. In 1950, 53% came from Europe, 40% from Latin America, 6% from Asia, and 1% from other places. In 2000, 15% came from Europe, 49% came from Latin America, 31% from Asia, and 5% from other places. Where do we live? Today, 80 of the 100 people live in cities and suburbs, while 20 live in farms and in the country. But it hasn't always been this way. A huge change has taken place in just 100 years. During the 1900s, many Americans moved from the country to the city. In 1900, 40 people lived in towns and cities and 60 lived in the country. In 1920, 51 lived in towns and cities and 49 lived in the country. In 1940, 56 lived in towns and cities and 44 lived in the country. In 1960, 70 lived in towns and cities and 30 lived in the country. Today, 80 live in towns and cities and 20 live in the country. Americans move around a lot. In 2007, 17 of the 100 people moved. Of these 17, 11 moved within the same state, 5 moved to a different state, and 1 moved to the United States from another country. People are not evenly spread across the whole country. Americans like to live together near other people. Of the 100 people, 50, half the population, live in just 9 states, 12 in California, 8 in Texas, 6 each in New York and Florida, 4 each in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and 3 each in Michigan and Georgia. The remaining 50 people live in the other 41 states. The 5 least populated states account for a total of only 1 person. Yes, the populations of Wyoming, Vermont, North Dakota, Alaska, and South Dakota all together add up to just over 3 million people, or 1 person in the U.S. village. What are our families like? When people think of an American family, they often imagine a mother, a father, and 2 children. But in reality, American families come in all shapes and sizes. In our imaginary village of 100, 20 families have 2 parents, while 7 are single-parent families. About half of these 27 families have children under the age of 18, for a total of 29 children. 10 households are made up of 1 person who lives alone. The remaining 14 people live in households of 2 or more unrelated people sharing living quarters. About 1% of all families in America are made up of 2 people of the same sex, either 2 men or 2 women. Some of these same-sex couples also have children. But in the village as a whole, there are almost twice as many households without children as with. How do American families compare with those of other nations? There are big differences. When young people in various countries were asked, "What's your ideal family? How many children do you want?" here's how they answered. In the United States, young people on average wanted 2 children. In India and Morocco, 5. In Yemen, Sudan, and Kenya, 6. And in Mauritania, 9. What religions do we practice? There are many religions in America, but not all people are religious. If you ask the people in our village what religion they practice, here's what they would say. 82 consider themselves Christians. Of these, 54 are Protestants, 24 are Roman Catholics, 2 are Mormons, and 2 practice other Christian religions. 2 are Buddhist, 1 is Jewish, 1 is Muslim, 4 practice a wide variety of other world religions, such as Baha'i, Sikhism, and Taoism. 10 consider themselves non-religious. About 40 people in the village attend a religious service every week. These numbers are quite different from the rest of the world. If the whole world were a village of 100 people, there would be 32 Christians, 20 Muslims, 13 Hindus, 11 who practice folk religions, 6 Buddhists, 2 who practice other global religions, 1 Jewish person, 15 who are non-religious. America has many more Christians than the world as a whole because of its history. Most of the early immigrants were from Christian countries, and they brought their religion with them. What do we do? Most days, the village is a busy place. The children are in school, and many of the adults are hard at work. More than 1/4 of the inhabitants of our village, 27 in all, attend school. 3 are in preschool or kindergarten, 12 are in elementary school, 6 are in high school, and 6 are in college or other training. 47 people are employed. Of these, 18 are professions, 4 in management, 3 in education, training, and library professions, 2 in healthcare, 2 in finance, 1 in computer technology, 1 in architecture and engineering, 5 in science, law, social service, and the arts. 12 are in sales, selling goods or services in stores or offices. 7 are service occupations, 2 in food preparation, 2 in cleaning and maintenance of building and grounds, 1 in healthcare support, 1 in firefighting and law enforcement, 1 in personal care and services, barbers, beauticians, etc. 5 work in construction and repair, building or fixing buildings and products. 5 work in manufacturing, farming, and the transportation of goods. There are 5 people in the village who want to work but can't find jobs, and that number may be rising. The remaining 21 people don't work. 15 are retired, while 6 are not looking for work or are unable to work. Of the 6, 1 person is in prison or in jail. 1 other, who may be working, is on parole from prison. How old are we? As you wander through the village, you will see people of all ages, from babies to the elderly. The U.S. population is slightly older than that of the rest of the world, and it is getting older every year. Here is how the ages of people in our country of 100 compare to those of the world as a whole. Ages 0 to 9, 13 in the U.S., 19 in the world. Ages 10 to 19, U.S. 14, world 18. Ages 20 to 29, U.S. 14, world 17. Ages 30 to 39, U.S. 14, world 15. Ages 40 to 49, U.S. 15, world 12. Ages 50 to 59, U.S. 13, world 9. Ages 60 to 69, U.S. 8, world 6. Ages 70 to 79, U.S. 5, the world 3. Ages 80 and over, U.S. 4, rest of the world 1. So if the world were a village of 100, 37 people would be younger than 20, while in the U.S. village, that number would be only 27. Why is the United States aging faster than the world as a whole? One explanation is that many women in America postpone having children because they are in the workforce. As a result, fewer babies are being born, and therefore there are fewer young people in total. How wealthy are we? Every country has wealthy and poor people. In the U.S. village of 100, 5 people have more than half of all the wealth. The one wealthiest person, and remember 1 person represents 3 million people in the real America, has more than 30% of all the wealth. The 60 poorest people share only about 4% of the wealth. Many people in our village live below the poverty line. They make less money than is required to meet their food, shelter, and clothing needs. And the number of people living in poverty is increasing. In 2000, there were 11 people living below the poverty line. In 2004, there were 12. In 2008, 14 people in the U.S. village lived below the poverty line. Still, America is wealthier than many other countries. One measure of a country's wealth is the gross domestic product, GDP, per person. This is the number you get if you take the value of all the goods and services sold in a country in 1 year and divide it by the population. In the United States, the GDP per person is almost 46,000, while worldwide it's just 10,200. America is the 9th richest country in the world. As a comparison, the GDP per person in the world's poorest country, Burundi, is just $127. Some regions of America are much richer than others. The state of Delaware has the highest average income per person, about $70,000. The lowest is in Mississippi at less than half that, around $28,000. There are also differences between men's and women's income in America. For every dollar a man makes, a woman earns only 77 cents. What do we own? Americans own lots of stuff. In our village of 100 people, there are 81 cars, more than in any other country. If the whole world were a village of 100 people, there would be only 13 cars, and 3 of those would be in the United States. In some countries, including Ethiopia, Mali, Madagascar, Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Malawi, there would be just 1 car or less per 100 people. 73 cell phones, about the same number as in Barbados, Bermuda, and Japan. If the world were a village of 100 people, there would be about 50 cell phones, and 4 of those would be in the United States. But Americans are not the top users of cell phones. 18 countries now have more cell phones than people, with the highest number, 158 per 100 people, in Luxembourg. 74 televisions. If the world were a village of 100 people, there would be 25 televisions, and 4 of those would be in the United States. But again, though America has a lot of TVs, it doesn't have the most. Burundi comes first with 101, and Monaco is second with 77. There are many countries, including Eritrea, Chad, Tanzania, and Bangladesh, that have less than 1 television in their village of 100. What else do Americans own? In the U.S. village, there are 200 radios, 76 computers, 39 bicycles, and 40 portable media players, such as MP3 players. What do we use? No matter where in the world you live, you need energy and water. America uses a lot of both. Americans use more energy than any other country in the world. If all the energy sources, coal, petroleum, natural gas, nuclear, renewable, and electricity, were added up, Americans would use 21% of the world's total. Here's how America compares to some other countries in energy use. United States, 21.4%. China, 15.6%. Russia, 6.5%. Japan, 4.8%. India, 3.9%. Canada, 3%. Germany, 3%. In America, energy is used in industry, for transportation, and for other needs at home and at work. Wood was the main source of energy until the end of the 1800s, when it was replaced by coal and then by petroleum. Today, gas for cars and trucks account for 2/3 of all the petroleum used in the United States. Americans are also the world's top users of water. Water is used in homes, for irrigating crops and for industrial processes. You'd need an Olympic-sized swimming pool to hold the water each American uses, on average, each year, about 456,000 gallons, or 1,726,140 liters. Americans use more water per person than any other country in the world. In Greece, the rate per person is half that amount, and in the United Kingdom, it's only about 1/8. Here are some other things Americans use in just one day. 4 million plastic cups and 39 million paper cups. 576 million plastic beverage bottles, of which 60 million are recycled. More than 1 billion plastic bags, more than 4 billion sheets of paper. How healthy are we? A child born today in the U.S. village can expect to live nearly 78 years of age. 100 years ago, the life expectancy was only 48 years. This is a huge improvement, but the United States is far from being the world's #1 country for life expectancy. In fact, it is number 40. At the top of the list is Andorra. A baby born there can expect to live 83.5 years. At the other extreme are 5 countries with life expectancies of less than 40 years. Lesotho, 39.9 years. Zimbabwe, 39.5 years. Zambia, 38.4. Angola, 37.6, and Swaziland, 32.2. The lowest 36 countries are all in Africa. Health is closely linked to good nutrition. Americans are, by and large, pretty lucky when it comes to food. But 13 people in the village are considered food insecure, which means they have trouble finding resources to put food on the table. 87 people do have access to adequate food. 65 people are overweight. The people in the U.S. village are healthier than in many other places, but not as healthy as they could be. Even though America spends more money on healthcare than any other country, the United States ranks number 37 for quality of healthcare, after Dominica and Costa Rica, and just ahead of Slovenia and Cuba. America, past and future. Before Europeans arrived, as many as 10 million Native American people may have been living in North America, Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Over time, that number dropped as Native people died of disease or were killed in wars. Meanwhile, more and more people came to America from other parts of the world. If the U.S. were a village of 100 people, here's how big the village would have been over time. Before 1492, 3. 1700, less than 1. 1800, 1 person. 1850, 8 people. 1900, 25, 1950, 50, 2000, 93, today, 100. What will America be like in the future? By 2050, the population is predicted to be about 419 million, about one-third larger than today. If that population were shrunk to a village of 100, there would be 72 whites, including 24 Hispanics, 15 blacks, 8 Asians, and 5 who identify themselves as members of other races. As it has in the past, America will continue to grow and change. That was If America Were a Village, a book about the people of the United States by David J. Smith, illustrated by Shelley Armstrong in 2009.